Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing another one of the Dresden Files. This one is Summer Night, which is number 4 in the series. And just to start off, this will be mostly a spoiler review, just because I've reviewed 3 of these now, and I'm just going to start repeating myself if I'm not able to talk about spoilers, basically. But if you haven't read the book already, I will give you my quick little mini review. It's pretty much in line with the other 3. I do think this has been the strongest entry so far, and that's just because you're learning more about the world and characters, as you'd expect as the series progresses. And as always, it checks those boxes for me. That is really what drew me to Dresden Files in the first place. They're quick, they're easy, they're not complicated, and they're fun. So that's my little non-spoiler review, but like I said, I will be getting into spoilers from here on out. So, yes, Summer Night, we have another entry. I really like this one. Like I said earlier, I think it is the strongest entry so far, and a lot of it just has to do with kind of Butcher's expanding his scope, and you're learning more and more about the world. And one thing I'm really loving about the Dresden Files as I read more and more is really, it almost feels like nothing is off limits. The world is starting to feel really big, whereas in the earlier entries, it felt rather small, that you were confined to just Chicago, that little corner that Harry Dresden occupies. Now we're really starting to get a grasp of, okay, there are some bigger things going on here, just outside of Chicago, and really I can see where this series is going. It's going to be, I would suspect, more of a global size series than just Chicago based, but at the same time staying true to its roots and staying true to kind of that urban fantasy setting. So very good in that sense. And yes, one of the things I love is just nothing seems to be off limits, like I was mentioning earlier. And we have wizards, we have vampires, we have werewolves, we have the Fae and that whole different world that Butcher calls the Never Never. That seems really cool. We got to learn really a lot more about how the Fae operates and the politics behind it. So it gives you a little taste of what's all over fantasy right now, especially in the grimdark genre. Just like that political aspect, we learn more about like the fairy courts and stuff. And I thought Butcher did a really great job depicting, so there's 3 queens for winter and 3 queens for summer, and it's a little complicated because they have a present queen, a queen to be, I think they call it, and the queen that's been, so they have like a grandma queen, normal like adult queen, and then a younger, like almost teenage coming of age queen, and they all kind of have their own motives and play off each other. And one of my favorite scenes was when Dresden goes to see the like the grandmother style queens, or the queens that were whatever they were called, and every other aspect of like the summer versus winter is very conflict heavy. They are very clear, like 2 opposing forces. But when he goes to see those queens that were, I'll call them for now, they kind of have like set their differences aside in their old age. As you'd suspect, they're older, they're wiser. You can tell they kind of realize, like, why are we fighting? What are we doing? And they end up helping Dresden out, as you guys know if you've read it. So I thought that was really cool. Even I really loved Butcher's depiction of the unicorn outside of the elderly queen's residence. How it's like this, in every other fantasy series I've ever read or the genre has had to offer, at least that I've come across, unicorns are these like regal, like beautiful creatures, and Butcher takes that in a totally different direction. It's the furthest thing from the truth. He describes it as like, one, it's blind, it has no eyes, it's like got chitinous armor. It's like almost bug-like, it feels like. Just absolutely terrifying depiction of it. So I thought that was just a cool take on something that as fantasy readers we're so familiar on. And once again, this is, as I progress more and more in the series, the hooks early on seem to be more of like, they at their core they felt like mystery novels. As I get further in the series, at the core of these books now going forward, as I read more and more, they feel less like a mystery novel and more like a true fantasy novel as you'd expect. And then the mystery is just kind of like a side piece almost, as you're learning about all these, fantastical creatures and the Fey world and all their politics and everything. And then yes, at their core, you're still, in this book, you're still looking for the killer of the Summer Night, who, as you guys know if you've read it, but each queen kind of has their knight or their designated warrior that has special powers, and what causes the conflict between summer and winter in this one is the Summer Night gets murdered, and Dresden is hired by the current winter queen, the middle one, if you will, to find the Summer Night's killer, because she's basically been set up, she feels, and it's going to cause a huge war between summer and winter. And we do meet the Lady of Summer, who's the youngest one, and right off the bat, she's like the only, she's depicted as like the only fairy or city, I think they're called. Correct me if that pronunciation is wrong, I'm not positive on that. But the city are like as you'd expect, like the quintessential like fairy godmothers, as we've seen with Dresden's own godmother, but they seem to be the most powerful beings in the Fey world, in the Never Never, and they have a lot of power, and they're very conniving. Their kind of main source of mischief is they make deals that are almost impossible for the other party to get out of or to not accept, and they always come at a great cost. So we meet the Lady of Summer, which is the youngest one, and right off the bat I was saying she seems like no other city we've ever met, doesn't seem conniving, and seems really like generous and just like a good person, and right away I was like, this is too good to be true, just because every other city isn't like that. It's just, felt a bit weird and wrong. There wasn't much like lead up to it. It just was like you're kind of thrown into the situation, and you're like supposed to expect that the one of the three, queens of summer would be this like kind, generous being. And sure enough, we do find out that she actually set up the Winter Queen, Maeve, or Mab, because she wanted to kind of destroy this like never-ending battle between summer and winter, and it would, by taking out the Summer Night and destroying their power, it would, it would destroy the balance, and winter would kind of reign, and the story kind of follows that, like one that would be extremely devastating. But the end scene, we go into the in-between, which is like the in-between the Never Never and our world, and it's, I believe it's like the city are the ones who have like, I don't know if they create the in-between, but they have access to it, and that's kind of like the battleground for winter and summer. And Butcher, I'm really coming to enjoy. Like, these books aren't overly complicated or dense by any means, but man, does Butcher do a really good job writing action. And you can always count on like the last bit of his books to be, the last 70 or so pages to be just this great, wonderful action scene. And that's what we get at the end of this, is kind of summer and winter. They've both gathered their troops, if you will, and they're going to war. And Dresden kind of throws a wrench in that, he does stop Lady Summer from sacrificing the Lady Summer put the Summer Knight's powers into a changeling, who she then turned into a statue, and she was going to sacrifice her on the table of Summer and Winter to kind of release the power of the Summer Knight forever and create that imbalance. So Butcher kind of swoops in during this great scene, and that's what I'm really loving about these books. It's just sheer enjoyment they're bringing me is almost unparalleled. Just for the sake of, they're like perfect break books when you're reading something more dense, because they're just cool and then fun and interesting. You're learning about all these creatures that you've seen before in the genre, but the takes are so unique and really grab your attention, and it just it's done so well. So anyways, Dresden kind of swoops in, does end up taking out the Lady of Summer, and there's this beautiful moment where they kind of have this moment as she's dying where Dresden realized that in her mind she was just trying to put an end to this war, and unfortunately she didn't see that by throwing the world into devastation. That wasn't exactly the way to do it, but nevertheless it's still a very touching scene as she dies by Dresden's hand. And one of the other things I do want to touch on is another thing I really respect about this series is it does feel like actions and events actually have real consequences. It doesn't feel like when the book ends, these horrific things have happened, and then new book starts and everyone's back to all the characters are back to their normal selves, ready to go get it. And one of the things I appreciated about this book is in the last entry, Grave Peril, we had the Nightmare Kavos, who just wreaked havoc on Murphy, and in this book you see her. She's clearly been devastated by that interaction as just a normal mortal human being, being really terrorized by a supernatural being, and it leaves a real impact. Murphy before was this almost untouchable, your moral compass, it's gonna do things by the book, and we see her turn to alcohol and drugs just because she can't sleep because she's terrified of nightmares, and she's racked by them. So that's just one thing I wanted to touch on before I wrap up this review, that I just remembered, is that it does really feel, I can really appreciate Butcher, what he does, and that these events do have impacts on people that feel real and consequential, rather than just being like, yay, we defeated the big baddie and let's all hold hands and move on and take on the next adventure. And it does feel like it takes some time for the characters to recoup, and you can tell they're never going to be quite the same because of their experiences, which obviously mirrors real life. So yeah, I appreciate that. But anyways, that is where I'm going to wrap up Summer Night. I'm looking forward to continuing on the series, obviously. As I get deeper and deeper into it, I'm learning I really appreciate more and more the entries as I go along further. If I had to put it in a tier, I think still B tier for me, just simply because right now I'm still just reading for sheer, they're just fun and enjoyable, and B tier is good, but they're not anything groundbreaking yet. I can see possibly where the series will kind of gravitate towards something bigger, if you will. But for now, really good, enjoyable books. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I know it's a little bit different doing the almost full spoiler review, but hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and leave a like and subscribe if you will. Thanks.